Okay, let's get right back to it. There's a lot going on right now. So far, CNN, Fox, and NBC are now projecting and forecasting that the Democrats will take the majority in the House of Representatives. There are at least 5 seats in California that are currently held by Republicans, which may well be flipped because of the number of illegal voters in California. Then we have the potential of the scenario that if the illegal voters aren't enough, the software will finish the job. It looks as if this is going to happen at this point. And if it does, the next 2 years are going to be hell in this country. Joel Skousen is standing by to join us this hour. Very kind of Joel. We usually do cover the elections, and he's back with us tonight. Hello, my friend. How are you? You there, Joel?
I'm back, yes.
As I said a moment ago, CNN, NBC, and Fox and Drudge are now all projecting that the Democrats will take the House. Joel, this is not good news for the nation. It's indicative of a very strange set of circumstances that seem to be, I don't know where they came from. There are things happening that just make no sense. And you have to start wondering about, as I mentioned earlier, the millions and millions of illegal alien voters in this country. Vote fraud by way of software, electronic voting machines. It's too easy to do. We know from the book written by the Collier brothers, Vote Scam. That was in the late 80s. And those were hand-counted paper ballots. The League of Women Voters back then was caught red-handed fixing an election in Florida. It's just, I don't know. That's enough for me. Let's hear how it looks to you.
Well, it does indeed look like the Democrats are going to control the House, but this is really not a major blue wave. It's interesting that there were 23 seats that were held by Republicans in districts that voted for Hillary Clinton in the last election.
Yeah.
And every one of those Republicans has now lost to a Democrat. And so these were Democratic, these were suburban areas that had heretofore been Republican, and we've had a constant influx of people into the Dallas area, for example, where Pete Sessions lost, powerful chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, to a liberal, progressive actually, in the far left category, NFL player and ACLU attorney. Or in any case, what I'm saying is this is not as unpredictable or bad as we think. Let me put this in the overall perspective. In the first place, the Republicans are going to not only retain control of the Senate, they're probably going to increase their numbers in the Senate, which is very, very important because it means that any attempt by the House to do an impeachment on President Trump would be blunted by the Senate, where it has to be prosecuted. The second thing is Trump will continue to be able to get judges confirmed, whether it's a new Supreme Court justice or regular justices, and most importantly, Jeff Sessions is most likely going to resign right after the midterm elections, and Trump's going to be able to hopefully appoint somebody who isn't deep state. He's made that mistake every time he's had an appointment so far.
He has indeed.
But, hopefully he'll get somebody who will get this job done and overrule Rod Rosenstein, who seems to have something over.
What have you heard about Sessions resigning? Was this just a way to save face for Sessions rather than to get fired?
Yeah, exactly. He knows that the president's going to release him, and probably Mattis, too. Mattis has been really bucking the president about putting troops on the border and giving them restrictions.
Oh, has he ever?
Oh, yes. So Mattis is probably going to be on the way out if Trump is smart. That's a big if right now. But what I'm saying is that the big thing that the control of the House to the Democrats will do is give them control over the committee chairmanships, House Intelligence Committee, House Judiciary Committee, where they will be able to, thwart and enliven Mueller's investigation and all kinds of other investigations that they'll do in league with the deep state in the Department of Justice. And that's why it's so important for Trump to get somebody decent in the Department of Justice, won't be an establishment. I think the chances of that happening are nil, frankly.
What are chances of what happening? Putting somebody decent in there?
Right, putting somebody decent in there who won't be controlled by the deep state, because Trump doesn't know anybody.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
So
well, look, who did he recommend to take over the United Nations ambassador position? Come on,
Yeah.
a former Fox blonde news commentator. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
in other words, the political climate is going to be more antagonist. But remember, too, that Trump did not have a true majority of Republicans either in the House or the Senate during his first 2 years.
The Senate will be the first time he'll really have influence, right?
In other words, he has been stymied at both ends of the spectrum, and he's had to make compromises. None of the bills that he's passed have really been, significant. I mean, there's been the tax cut for corporations, not that great for individuals, and of course the budget deals have been absolutely terrible. He got snookered every time with the promise of, compromising or throwing DACA up for a wall, and never got the wall funding. So, I don't think it can be much worse, frankly. He's not going to get much out of the House, but he wasn't getting anything before except a compromise. But at least he'll be able to continue to get confirmations in the Senate, and the Senate will be there to block any, dastardly things that the House may try to do.
Okay, let me go back to the Pentagon here with Mattis and Dunford, General Joe Dunford. They had a joint news conference today in which they said, absolutely, will our military not remotely come into contact with any of these illegals in the caravan. They will be held back. I watched them get off the planes and the buses. Not even a sidearm could I see, Joel. No rifles, nothing. They went down there to simply put up concertina wire, act as a logistical support base for the National Guard troops, who probably don't have ammunition either, and, of course, the Border Patrol. But they had that joint session today, and I'm asking myself, and I've asked it on this program several times, who's in charge? Do I have it right, in your view, that twice Trump has instructed the Pentagon as Commander-in-Chief what to do, and twice they have said no in the last week?
Absolutely correct. Now, they have a lot of non-lethal weapons they can use. They have sound machines. They have microwaves.
They have ADS. That's exactly right. EMF, ADS, advanced denial systems. They don't have to use weapons. They can use their sound and sonic devices. But they're not being taken down there. Not a word about them. It's called ADS, as you know. And they work perfectly. Hundreds of yards away, people will turn and run because their skin feels like it's on fire. But they're not being talked about. Nothing. And Trump says to the caravans, you're not coming in here. Turn around and go home. You're wasting your time. You're not getting in. And then he says, if you come in, you have to come in through a legal port of entry, or you don't get in. What? He's contradicted himself, as you know, multiple times.
It's even worse. Now he says that he's going to let them into the country, but they have to stay in tents. And now the Pentagon
But the Pentagon won't build tents.
We're not going to build your tent cities for you. I mean, Trump is just...
They're hanging him out to swing in the wind. He's in charge of nothing. And it's never been more blatantly obvious. He can't... I don't think he can fire the generals. You got Kelly, who's around him 25 hours a day. Mattis, Dunford. There's three right there. What is the guy in charge of?
Well, he is Commander-in-Chief. He can determine who's going to be... He can't get someone into, but he can fire them. He can dismiss them all as
well, remember Ross Perot. Remember what happened to Ross. He was warned, and he's disappeared. And if Trump gets warned, you love your daughter, you love your son, all it takes is one person whispering in his ear, and he'll do what he's told. I'm sorry to even say that, but that's the kind of situation I think we're facing. I don't honestly think Donald Trump is in charge of much of anything. Twice, and thank you for confirming that through your military veteran's eyes and your wisdom, twice in a week or so, the Pentagon told the Commander-in-Chief basically to shove it. They're not going to do what he told them. This is a constitutional crisis, but it's not being talked about as such by anybody.
Well, he was kind of forewarned about that. Several generals gave an opinion when Trump was elected that they don't necessarily have to go along with what he says.
I remember.
They don't. They will.
It's
the
law.
If he was really a president.
I remember that, though. No, yes, he really, when they said no, he should have said, God, excuse my French, damn it, you get your butt down there and you get those troops down there or you're out of here. That's what a commander-in-chief would do. He didn't do that. He kept changing his story. He's waffling. He's doing reversals. I don't know what his current position is on this, except that these people, when they hit the border in another week or 10 days or whenever it is, they're in Mexico City now, they're going to come in. They can go right over that concertina wire with bolt cutters and boards. And Trump told them, you must come in through a legal port of entry. Joel, do you know how many legal ports of entry there are on the southern border? You probably have a pretty good idea. I've talked about this several times. People don't know. A port of entry is a legal international border crossing location. There are 48 of them on the southern border. These people could split up and go into a dozen or 24 ports of entry, overwhelm them, and just walk right through. No one's going to shoot at them. Lethal force is out. They won't even bring down, at least they're not talking about it, these ADS systems, Advanced Denial Systems. Look it up, ADS.
Well, frankly, I don't think they're going to overwhelm the border. There are stronger gates than there were on the Guatemalan-Mexican border to keep people from coming through.
I understand. I get it.
So they're not going to overwhelm those borders. They'll stand in line and claiming asylum.
I think they're going to be let in.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The Border Patrol is going to let them in because they're claiming asylum. And that's the crime of this, is that without any adjudication, you let them come in to wait out their time, and, of course, you catch and release because you don't have the facilities to hold them. And you'll have
no
women
tents
and
to put
children.
them in? Nothing.
That's right.
Gorsuch is his decision allowing every illegal to have the right of an attorney and a day in court was a catastrophe. Nobody remembers that. That was a catastrophic decision. And now they're coming in here and they're going to have, by law, an attorney and a day in court. What, 20,000 of them?
Just ridiculous. It's ludicrous. So, that's the state of our situation, and Trump needs to actually declare a state of emergency. He has the power to basically overrule all of these administrative rulings by the Department of Justice. Sessions is not changing, which he could. Right. But he could declare a state of emergency, and clearly, 20,000 people at the border is a state of emergency. He could just lock it down and say they're not coming through.
Absolutely.
Wait on the other side.
It's a national crisis. Also, here's another one. Every day at the border, the whole length of it, approximately 2,000 people a day cross into the U.S. Think about that. That's 750,000 a year. And these aren't caravans.
That's a caravan every 10 days.
That's right. Well, the last caravan of 1,500 people simply went to Tijuana, climbed over the fence, and got in.
Chief of Staff Chair General.
Remember that?
Yeah.
All right, they came right in. That was a caravan. These are just people, humanity, bleeding their way through this porous border of ours. And I just, when I saw that news conference, the Department of Defense briefing with Dunford and Mattis, I couldn't believe it. He said, absolutely, our troops will not touch the illegals. We'll have nothing whatsoever to do with them. And I said to myself, well, Donald, what the hell are you going to do about this? If he doesn't do anything, he will be sending a signal that says what, Joel? I'm weak, I'm impotent, I can't control my own Pentagon, I'm not really commander-in-chief. I mean, these guys just had, side by side, Mattis and Dunford stood there and basically told Trump, you're nothing. We're not doing it. Just unbelievable to me. I can't believe what I'm seeing some of these days.
Well, it isn't anything we haven't seen before, though. We've seen Trump turned around on almost every decision that he made, whether it's North Korea or anything else.
It's not so much that, Joel. It's that seeing Mattis and Dunford, the top two generals in the country, arguably, military people, telling Trump, no. That's amazing. What kind of signal does that send to China, to Russia, to the EU, to the world. Here's Trump. We'll put 15,000 troops down there if we have to. And if we see a rock hitting one of our boys, we're going to treat those rocks as if they're assault rifles, and we're going to shoot back. What is he doing? He's flapping his gums, and then he has to walk back on everything practically that he says. Can he figure it out yet? I don't know. It's not good.
Well, you'd have to be in his chair, and as I've said many times on your show and in my World Affairs Brief, Donald Trump does not have any experience at all in dealing with the Washington bureaucracies or with conservative ideology or with conservative principles. He doesn't have any understanding of the deep state, other than the fact that he believes that it's a bunch of anti-Trump Democrats that are holdovers in the State Department. But it isn't. It's much more than that.
Right.
The deep state kills presidents. They killed JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King. They covered up for TW-800. They pulled off 9/11 as a complete black operation. I mean, this is a very big, lethal organization, and it infiltrates every form of government and even into the military. So it's no wonder that Donald Trump doesn't know what he's talking about when he says he's going to drain the swamp.
No. It's just kind of leaves you speechless sometimes. Ted Cruz wins re-election over Beto. Not a surprise there. Menendez, ethics be damned, gets a third term. Gillum loses in Florida by 1%. That was close. The communist, another nut, is like Jerry Brown. CNN is saying again now Democrats take the House. Well, it's 163 Republican right now to 161 Democrat. So they are apparently
they're
en
going to
route.
make it. Yeah. Well, here's the point about the political divide. Everyone's talking about a return to civility and how difficult that is, but there can never be a return to civility.
Who's talking about that? I believe you, but I don't see it.
Senator Lindsey Graham.
Oh, good luck, Linz. Yeah.
No, he was decrying the fact that it would be very unlikely. So there isn't anybody saying that, it's going to return to... The voices are going to get more strident now. But we have to remember, this is a problem of creeping socialism. We come from a country where you started with a laissez-faire free market capitalism that has slowly been encroached upon over the years. And it took FDR to first introduce socialism, and it kind of kicked back in his teeth. But over the years, socialism is a creeping... called benefit corruption.
It's a cancer.
I call it. It's a cancer that creeps up on people because as people everybody has problems. The politicians blame it on the free market. They offer them a solution. The government comes out and gives you benefits. Now it becomes almost anathema politically for a person to be opposed to the healthcare mandate in the sense of pre-existing conditions. That's the golden rod now that every Democrat can pump, and every Republican to win re-election has to turn around and says, I will vote for insurance mandate covering pre-existing conditions. But you see, that's the major thing that causes health care premiums to skyrocket, is the fact that everybody's having to pay now for these pre-existing conditions of other people. In other words, there's no responsibility for you being obese and then getting a chronic disease. Right. There are, of course, a small percentage of people who have chronic things that are not their fault. Right. But the point is indistinguishable from the people that have, at-fault chronic diseases. And there has to be consequences for these things. But, it's political.
Consequences? You're right.
It's politically poison to be able to make a stand to say that you're going to have to deal with your own long-term, diseases, to say it's not right to have other people pay for you. But we saw time after time people say, and Republican candidates flip to the other side after voting against Obamacare, then to say, well, we'll have to have a Republican alternative against pre-existing conditions. But see, that's creeping socialism. And all the pundits on the media today are talking about the fact that white, educated people are voting more and more Democratic now. And millennials are voting more and more Democratic. And that's because education is synonymous with socialism, because that's all they get in public schools and in the university levels of education, and they get preached.
You're 100% right. Totally right.
They don't call it socialism, but they call it government benefits and helping the poor. And
they're being programmed from the beginning now, and the results are clear. You're right. You're totally correct.
I mean, even in states like Utah and Idaho, for example, Mitt Romney, as bad as a compromiser as he is, in a Mormon state where he's a favored son and things, Orrin Hatch would typically win re-election 75%, to 25 or 30%. Mitt Romney's only winning 55 to 45 against a Democrat. And one of the House districts, the 4th district in Utah, Mia Love, a black conservative American Republican, is neck and neck with a liberal Democratic mayor who's calling himself a Republican Democrat because he's in a Republican state. And but
a Republicrat.
Yeah, a Republicrat. But in any case, what I'm saying is that Utah is becoming more and more liberal because all the universities, including the Mormon University, BYU, is preaching, government benefits.
Creeping socialism.
Democrat.
Yeah.
They're preaching socialism by any other name. And in Idaho, it's the same thing. Now, a lot of people, because I wrote Strategic Relocation, and those are my 2 highest-rated states in the union, complain to me, look, they're turning more liberal. I say, yeah, look at every other state, too. In other words, it's a wave all across the nation, a slow, suffocating wave of education that is crucifying this country.
I wouldn't even call it education, Joel. It's programming. It's mass social engineering and programming, mind programming. That's what it is. You inflict this upon the human mind from a very early age, and it doesn't take too long for it to become the actual...
But it isn't automatic like a programming thing is. What I'm just saying, there is choice there, but it appeals to people's baser nature, their unintelligent, unthinking nature. And that proves it's a very sad commentary on human nature.
Yeah, I agree.
People are susceptible to this, but not everybody is susceptible.
No, but too many are. And now we have how many millions of illegal voters this time around? How many millions in California even? It could be 2-3 million in California.
Yeah, and judges continue to turn down any type of voter scrutiny by citizenship.
Unreal. Hold on just a minute. Joel Skousen and I will be right back with you. Joel, the editor, of course, of World Affairs Brief, which comes out this Friday, and you can get a free complimentary copy. Pardon the redundancy, and we'll tell you how to do that and more as we continue with Joel. Okay, and we're back talking with Joel Skousen. Joel, I really still believe that, in my view, the biggest event in many weeks was the Pentagon refusing the commander-in-chief twice. First, they said they would not be sending combat troops down there, just troops for logistical support. And then they told Trump, we're not building your tent city. We're not going to do anything. Here's the formal story. The U.S. military has said that its troops deployed to the Mexican border to help stop a migrant caravan from entering the U.S. will not tackle, i.e. physically, migrants or illegals. The troops will be mainly assisting in building barricades and barracks facilities. Far from stopping a tide of weary refugees with cruel live fire, U.S. troops sent to the border aren't even supposed to come into physical contact with caravan migrants. This, of course, from General Joe Dunford and echoed by Mattis. So I just find this situation to put Donald Trump in a very precarious constitutional position. What is he in charge of, I ask, rhetorically, or any way you want to take it, beside his lunch and dinner and fast food and his Diet Coke? He drinks over a gallon of Diet Coke a day with all that aspartame in it and all the other poisons and toxins. Is he mentally still competent? I don't know. But we do have the potential now for the House, Joel, going Democrat, to push this impeachment thing again. In fact, it may not go away for 2 years. I don't know what the ultimate disposition of it will be. But let's look at this. First, the Pentagon. How big of an issue is this? When Trump says what he wants and the Pentagon tells him no, not once, but twice.
Well, it's not quite that clear-cut. Here's what the Pentagon told the Daily Mail, that active duty troops do not have the authority to conduct the type of mission that President Trump has requested unless they are granted additional authorities by the president.
And he should have immediately granted those additional authorities. But not a word, not a word from the White House about that. I read it. I talked about it. Nothing. It ended.
Now, here's the second point, though. The Pentagon told the Daily Mail the U.S. is forbidden by law from making arrests or otherwise performing domestic law enforcement functions. Now, of course, that's the posse comitatus law. But
which has largely been ignored, by the way.
No, that's right. But that only, you notice how if they want to intervene against American citizens, they can throw away posse comitatus. Now they're using it as an excuse not to be able to intervene here. But remember, it's about, that's against U.S. citizens. Posse comitatus does not apply
to illegal invaders.
A foreign invasion. And this is a foreign invasion from a country.
Yep.
And the military can use force. Posse comitatus does not apply except within, and of course the government disregards that when they want to. But now they're using it as an excuse. They want it both ways.
Well, doesn't that then raise the, maybe a bit of a stretch, but doesn't it raise the potential of looking at Mattis and Dunford as perhaps not being, shall we say, fully constitutionally responsible? I don't want to use the treason word, but if they're not going to allow the president to send armed combat troops down there to in any way engage with an invading enemy, what the hell do we even have an army for?
Well, they're there for globalist purposes when you want to intervene in foreign countries.
That's right. Now, by the way...
You know, they keep talking about the military protecting our interests, serving in our... You know, we thank the military for in
Afghanistan.
Defending our freedom. But when we have a real chance...
They're patrolling the border in Afghanistan and Iraq.
To defend your freedoms against an invading horde, I mean, what do? They stand down.
All right. Well, I do, again... The word treason comes to mind. I'm not going to make any allegations here, but there's something really wrong here if we send our men and women over to protect and guard and patrol borders in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere, but they will not be allowed to protect our international border with another sovereign nation. Come on. And by the way, the refugee status, according to the United Nations, is that people who are in fear of their lives have the right to leave their country and seek asylum. Okay, we got that. But do you know what the rule is? You have to assume asylum and accept it in the first adjacent international boundary country to the country you're fleeing. You have to take that asylum in Mexico, for example, if you come from an adjacent country. You can't say, oh, we don't want to be in Mexico. We're going to transit Mexico and go into the next country, which is us. They are internationally now not following the law, protocol of refugees and asylum, which says you've got to accept it in the very next state, nation state, from the one that you're running from. That's the rule. But no one's paying attention. No, we don't want Mexico. We want America. That's what they said. And now they're in Mexico City, and they'll be gathering more and more as they get closer to the border. You know that. Soros is probably pumping more money as we're talking right now into this operation. See, this is a big problem. Now, let me go back to the House thing and Hillary in 2020. What do we think about that? We got a Democrat House. We got Hillary Clinton, and we know she's going to run. Everybody knows that. Wow. This is going to get to be pretty wild.
Well, George Soros is, in fact, funding a lot of refugee and migrant services around the world. He's especially active in Eastern Europe, where his Open Society Foundation is actually providing debit cards.
Yes.
Banks are going along with the debit cards to migrants so that they have automatic payments. Now, he's not doing that as far as we know to the caravans.
Oh, we've caught people giving out money, passing out cash.
Cold cash.
That's right. No credit cards, cash. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's much more sophisticated there. I mean, in league with the banks to provide debit cards so they can just debit and the money is there, and George Soros is providing it. I did a little research on how he made his money, and I'll tell you, it's one of those Clinton-esque type of things where suddenly you become rich overnight by insider trading deals, and they know how to play the game in order to enhance the people that they want.
Not what you know, it's who you know. Yeah, and you know the right people, you'll get the right information, and not good. All right, so we have a president who has been basically told off by his own military, which will not protect our own border. And yet they're in over 160 other countries, 300,000 troops around the world. Many of those countries have not invited us in, like Syria, for example. And yet we can't take care of our own border? Joel, this is wrong. It's just as wrong as it gets. And none of the media will talk about it.
It's interesting that these advisors, these globalist advisors, have a very slick excuse for almost everything that happens in the world. So unless you really go into the presidency well educated in the ways of the deep state and the kinds of excuses you're going to be faced with,
right,
you haven't got a chance. And Trump, he's no dummy in business affairs, but you're only as smart as the base of knowledge and experience that you have, and he has zilch when it comes to defending principles.
What does the future hold for him the next 2 years, if he makes it for the next 2 years? Seriously, legislation? How's he going to get legislation through a Democrat House?
Well, here's what he does. You've got to remember that Trump's got a big ego. He talks success, he wants to make a deal, and he revels in a deal, and you'll see him make compromises. He's going to sell out on more promises than we thought.
Thank you for the term sell out. That's exactly what a compromise is, sell out.
There's going to be comprehensive immigration reform. He's going to give in to DACA at the false promise of funding some kind of border security. We'll never see a wall built, though.
Oh, I've said that from the beginning. So have you.
The fact that the military is putting up concertina wire, and it will be because it's backed up by troops, there's people on the other side of that concertina wire, it would be an effective thing. And a lot of people are saying, well, you don't need to pay billions of dollars for the wall. Let's get some concertina wire up there.
Oh, please. So 10,000 people, 20,000 approaching will know exactly where the concertina wire is. They simply turn left or turn right and go around it.
Well, it takes time to do that, and you can string concertina wire pretty darn fast. What I'm saying is they can block the border fairly cheaply, with some makeshift efforts. But they just don't want any of this.
They're not allowed to come into contact, according to the Pentagon, with any of the illegals. So if the illegals start to storm through, they get bolt cutters and they chop through the wire here or there. They start to run through by the hundreds and then the tens of hundreds.
That's not very easy to do with concertina. You can cut it, but it still springs around. It's coiled. It's up in the air. It can't be flattened very easy. It's very, very difficult to get through. It snags you even if you cut it. So this is a pretty effective, but in combination with something to slow them down, like sound waves or microwaves.
In the very beginning, Joel, I explained the ADS system and how it works, and I said these should already be in the media, being talked about, being deployed. They should be being trailered down there right now, or just trucked down there, because I think they come basically on a trailer. They could pull them down and move them around quickly wherever they needed them. Very simple. And we've got plenty of them. But nothing. And I'm wondering now if Trump even ordered them, if his orders would be followed. I view what has happened with the Pentagon to be, is the word insubordination? I don't know what it is. Are we living under some kind of a military junta here, run out of the Pentagon and Northcom? What are we doing?
It's called the deep state, and people are not necessarily all in or all out with the deep state. The deep state has many ways to be able to lean on people who aren't knowing conspirators to get them. And one of the ways that they do it is through using legal interpretation. They got legal interpretation for both sides of almost any conflict they can do. That's how they justify foreign intervention.
Right.
And yet, as I've just explained here, you misuse the Posse Comitatus Act to claim that you can't deal with illegal aliens. Well, you see, you got to know a little bit about. I wonder who is Trump hiring as attorneys who can't see through very clearly the fact that the Posse Comitatus doesn't apply to illegal invasion across the border. But, Trump is obviously clueless and is getting these arguments and is buying into these arguments. I can find no other explanation for the.
Is he that isolated? Is he that sealed off? Really? You and I can sit here and view this very appropriately and accurately, and he can't. And is Kelly keeping him insulated in some kind of a?
A lot of it is self-insulation. Trump has always been a person, as a business executive, that relies on people feeding him information. He doesn't go out and get it himself. He says, "Tell me this, get me this, find this for me." And people feed him information. And so the people who are feeding him information, it's all disinformation now, and it's all excuses, et cetera. And so he doesn't have any lawyers on our side. He doesn't have any advisors who understand the deep state. And if he did, let me tell you, it would leak out to the press so fast, they would crucify Trump because of so-and-so, his advisor, who's an extremist. And we demand he be removed. And they would hound him out of the White House. The only way that Trump could do that is to have a secret advisor, and that's tough in a White House full of leakers. But someone who isn't got an official position who would be able to whisper in his ear, or after the fact, after he shuts everyone else, have a private meeting with him, explain to him what was the counters for how to get past what he was told during the day.
Right.
It would be very, very difficult because the deep state is so ubiquitous in terms of its eyes, ears, everywhere.
It is that. All right. In Georgia, Stacey Abrams beaten handily by Brian Kemp, 53% to 46%. We'll call it. So she loses. Gillum, let's see what's the latest on Gillum. He was losing by 1% with 99% of the vote counted in Florida. Okay, Andrew Gillum loses Florida gubernatorial race against DeSantis. Okay, that's good. Okay, he was a blatant communist. Right. a blatant communist. That would have been a disaster. California and Florida would have been both gone then, had he gotten in there. Okay. If you just tuned in, we're not playing the game like the networks. If you want to watch the individual results and get the actual figures, then you'll be already doing it. We're talking about bigger issues here, trying to look ahead with a Democrat House. Trump can only make deals. Let me rephrase this. How much of a sellout will his base allow Trump to be in terms of dealing with the Democrat House?
I think they'll succumb to almost every sellout because they are so determined now to. What other alternative is there? You see, Trump has captured the entire political climate from the conservatives.
Right.
I mean, the Freedom Caucus represents in the House, and they'll have a little more power now within the Democrats, within the Republicans, because a lot of the moderate Republicans, the liberal Republicans, lost to Democrats in the House. So they're going to have a higher percentage, but they're the real heroes. They're the real principled minority within the Republican Party, and Trump is not. Trump is a populist. And Trump will, unfortunately, not bemoan the compromises. He will celebrate his compromises, as he has every time he's met with Pelosi and others. He celebrates it. And his base seems to be totally subservient to the gamesmanship.
Yes, it does.
The merchandising that Donald Trump sells, and he sells it very well.
Yeah.
He continues to sell things even that he's already compromised on during his rallies, as if it's going to be resurrected, but it won't be resurrected.
No. All right.
So I'm sadly say that his supporters will continue to support him 100% because he has completely monopolized the Republican agenda. It's all about Trump now. There is no other competing candidate for the Republican mind.
But he doesn't seem to.
Trump.
He's the president with no clothes. Where's his strength, really? Okay.
Well, his strength, frankly, is the fact that there is this great political divide. Everyone senses that you've got to stop this wave of socialism. I don't think it can be stopped. I think it's already gone too far.
I couldn't agree more.
Once you have raw democracy and you have a benefit-corrupted majority, or at least added to that, the educated class who believes in giving them the benefit as a matter of charity, as a matter of being higher than thou, those greedy Republicans, because we can give other people's money to them and save them. Well, it doesn't save them. But, the combination of the benefit-corrupted minority plus the minority of supporters of benefit corruption, socialism, makes a majority. And once you get, in a raw democracy, a majority of voters that will take away your rights, and we're just, counting the fact that not all Democrats vote, we've been able to win some elections in some areas of the country. But I think the wave is not an avalanche at this point, but this wave is a swelling tide that is growing that's going to sink us probably within a decade. I don't think we'll ever be able to win another major election.
I would say that you're correct, and I think that's being charitable. I think it'll be sooner than a decade. Ocasio-Cortez, the communist, youngest woman elected to the House, two Muslim females, one from Detroit, one from Minneapolis, I think, are going to the House now from the Muslim communities there. Their agenda is working. They planned this all out. They know what they're doing. If these invaders come in and get across the border, what will the message be to the rest of Central, South America, Africa, the Middle East? Come to America. There's no pushback. That will be the
Trump
message.
Is a paper tiger. That's the message.
That's the message. Is the victory by the Democrats, if they do, in fact, take the House, and it looks like they will, some kind of a vindication, if that's the right word, for Barry Soetoro?
Well, he certainly, campaigned for it, and, he is the golden boy still of the Democrats.
He is, absolutely, yes.
You know that Hillary Clinton didn't get out there and campaign for these people. She's anathema to them.
She stayed away.
I think it's going to be a major mistake to run Hillary Clinton, against Trump.
What if Hillary Clinton picks Barack Obama to be her vice president, which she can do?
Yeah, technically I think she could do that.
And that's crazy talk, some of you say, but is it?
Yeah, but
Maybe.
look at how many people around the world have gotten themselves into permanent positions of power, like Vladimir Putin, by changing rules democratically, and by Xi Jinping changing the rules democratically, as if you can consider a single-party democracy.
Right. All right. Impeachment back on the front burner with the Democrat House. Are they going to try it?
They're going to try it because Nancy Pelosi is afraid of the radicals that are coming into the party, who are going to demand it, and she's going to have to give them their day in court. What they're going to do it on, I don't know. That's why I think they're going to have to continue to push the Mueller investigation so that they can somehow, say that he's guilty of obstructions. I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
Right.
But Pelosi's got to satisfy that part of the party, of which she's a radical, globalist herself.
Right, but, 2 more years
anyway.
of excruciating ugliness is what I'm hearing.
It'll be worse for us because we'll see Donald Trump compromise even more to be able to have some successes. He's going to have to go into the next election claiming success, and that's why he's going to compromise.
He's already raised $100 million.
But he's a very effective campaigner. You look at those rallies that he's had, and I'll tell you, he had people for miles waiting to get in to see the president. So this just increases the divide. People, and unfortunately, though, the Trump mania is not a healthy thing because it's not a principled conservatism. It is populism.
It's not a principled conservative movement. You're correct. 100% correct. It's almost like just a knee-jerk thing. It's kind of scary. That's populism, though. If you'd like to get a free edition of Joel's wonderful World Affairs Brief, and Fridays ought to be a keeper, you can get one. All you have to do is ask. Just write to Joel, and the address is editor@worldaffairsbrief, editor@worldaffairsbrief.com. Just tell him you heard him here and you'd like to get a copy, and you'll get yours on Friday. Thank you, my friend. I don't see clear skies ahead.
No, there is no optimism in my camp right now.
No. All right. Take care, Joel. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Good night.